All right, we're back in the shop. Kind of decompressed some information since Yellow Belly. And I know the question on everybody's mind first is going to be third bottle. I'm here to tell you, third bottle would not have changed the outcome of the me and Studebaker race at all. So that car is designed to apply a lot more downforce than mine. So with that way, that's what I'm attributing a lot of it to. I think it's all comes down to downforce, and they also don't use any traction control as far as I know. So they're pretty much right foot only, which kudos to Brandon and them, because holy crap, to be able to handle that much power on a tiny tire with this only, that's insane. So, but I do think that the fact that their wing starts here and then continues to here, and then also with the undershape of the car and how it evacuates air, I do think that the way it applies pressure to the car, they're able to apply throttle and boogie woogie, because they boogie woogied big time. So I'm going to attribute the fact that we were already going pretty dang fast in our eyes and really didn't fathom that somebody would be going that much quicker. So, whew, man, people say I got a big set of cojones downstairs, and man, I know Brandon's a little guy. So maybe we'll find a funny picture right here to put in there with me and him talking. But I'm pretty sure his are bigger than mine. So I don't know if you caught it yet. There's not a big block sitting in it right now. It's got an LS in it right now. So but anyways, we'll come back to that in a second. We'll come back to that in a moment. So the third bottle. Why do I say a third bottle won't matter? Third bottle won't matter right now because we are making more power than we were able to apply to the surface at Yellow Belly. And if we can't put the power down, then there's no sense in having more power. So we were, like I said, we were already going very, very quick for that surface. And that right there, that's about all I can say. So I'm not, Megan and Eric have put me on a gag order to not reveal times. So we're going to hold off on that for right now. At least with the big block. The Texas Speed 427 over here, I don't mind talking about times, and that's why it's back in the car. So are we going to add a third bottle in the future? Yes, that is currently in the works right this moment. Right now, our information on the regulator setup in this car, because this is kind of untested. Like, it's been flow benched, but it's been untested in real world applications. And right now this regulator is flowing more air than what really anybody kind of saw I was going to do. So we just figured out that we can bring in at big stage a little softer. So we figured that out. So David and Randy have kind of figured that out in testing this regulator on Randy's car, Randy Westmoreland's. So with his Mazda 3, and we're going to add a Mac valve to our dump valve port on this thing, which basically equalizes some pressure flow in here. And that moves, or if you've watched some of my videos, especially in testing, where all of a sudden the car goes from blah to whoop, that's what's coming online. But now we're going to be able to progress that bleed in now that we know what the operating pressure is. So right now we're just doing some testing with my Amazon pressure tester kit here. First we started off with a 7,500 pound gauge, and then we put in a high resolution 200 psi gauge so we could see just how much pressure is there. And it's in the territory of Mac valve control. So that's what's going on there in a moment. So we are going to add a third bottle because for these all-out races where the surface isn't as much of a determining factor and the tire, chassis, and tuning is, then You know, we're not trying to go over speed bumps like we are at Yellow Belly. Where we can use more power, I do think that we are going to benefit from having a third bottle. So a smaller third bottle is on the way in order to feed the system. So we have more capacity, especially when we demand it with our loose torque converter and big cam in this thing and lower compression. So, but those are other items we should address too. So on the big block, one of the reasons why it's out is it's a lot easier to change the camshaft in it, which it's over. Big block's over here, you know, by the trash can, you know, in the boat anchor section of the shop. So the big block is out because it's a lot easier to change the camshaft in that on the stand than it is in the car, because we got to pull the intake off to hold the lifters up. So we also found a small oil leak on the front of the oil pan, so we're going to fix that up too. So all that stuff is easier to do on that motor by far on the run stand. And you know, my next big gotta kill him, gotta go fast is that $75,000 to win race at Shadyside, the Ronnie Buff Memorial that Corey Stanford's putting on. You know, we want to be at our ready. You know, last time we were running some pretty good numbers. We had fought our way into getting a bye to the semis, but we had broken the round before the semis by kicking a rod out of the motor, got the bye in the semis, and you know, we're technically landed in the finals, but we weren't able to run in the semis or the finals because we had a rod out of the motor. So boo. So that's why we went to aluminum rods instead of the Callies and Forster steel rods we had in the motor that we were going incredibly too fast for. And we got aluminum rods in the motor now. So, but aluminum rods can't make that many runs. So we got the motor a nice little sweet spot. It's about 60 runs on these rods, give or take. So we're well within the operating range, and we don't want to use those runs up before Shadyside. So I want to get more information on the LS. I want to have the confidence that we know what we're doing with the chassis with the LS in it in order to run some faster tree side stuff, you know, like Yellow Belly. So right now, the plan is the LS will be running probably tomorrow. So we're gonna do that. And then since it's a steel rodded motor, you know, we can use some more runs on it, you know. Aluminum rod motor, it's like, how many runs did X horsepower does it take to break the rod into two? Well, we don't really want to find out. With the LS and the steel rod, you know, we can run lower power numbers, but we can try, and I only say lower power numbers because we'll just dial it back for right now. We won't fatigue the rod out like we would on the big block, but you know, it'd be kind of neat to experiment with different fuel types. You know, like I really want to try E85 on this motor and see if it gives or takes horsepower. You know, that's a thought. I want to try that out. I also, last time, kind of limited ourselves on the LS because we were set up to go to the Cletus rear-wheel drive versus all-wheel drive race, which, hey, they're having another one. So in October, so look for content on that to come out. I want to make sure this is running even better for that when we get to that end of the year. I had the Comp 850-16 lifters in it, and we're spinning motor like 8,500. Well, there should be, because we're a hydraulic roller, there should be some power in there with running the Johnson short travels. So we got a set of the Johnson link bar short travels in the car right now. And as you can see, we got Texas Speed adjustable rockers on here, and I'm running the adjuster up and down until we find our sweet spot on push rod length and preload. So there is, you can't be at too far the extreme one way or the other. You got to be kind of in a happy zone so that the geometry stays happy and lubrication moves through the push rod into the lifter cup, into the rocker body, and on the rest of the valve train. So we're making sure that's going to be good, and then we'll tidy this motor up, and then we'll make some runs, and we'll see where the power falls off, like how it did before. So before, I think we peaked power like 6,300 RPMs with no air system. So that's our best baseline to work from. So we're gonna start there. Try to make some more power in A. Then we know the power on boost is gonna be there because, like I said, it peaked power at 63, but the poor motor is running this 85, and that G meter wasn't falling off at high RPM at all. So we were able to maintain that G. Well, wouldn't mind helping the motor out a little bit more, and I wouldn't mind testing some more of these control strategies I got going on, so that we can make the system even more adjustable. So that is the reason why this motor is back in here. We've also got, let's see, this weekend we plan on not racing. I plan on working on this a little bit and making some adjustments, and then dyno testing it hopefully this weekend, maybe early next week. And then Wednesday next week, looks like the weather should be clear enough to go test at US 36. So we'll kind of start figuring out the chassis a little bit, you know, what's too light on the nose, you know, can we run with no ballast on the car at all, like I hope we can, and have the car just be balanced and just haul butt. You know, is that going to make the tire happy? Are we going to want less tire pressure because of that? You know, are we going to want to move the against center? These are all questions I got. So those are things I want to find out, and I want to put some more runs in on the compressor setup, just to kind of get some more bulletproofing done there, which I'll go over that here in a minute too. So that is why the LS is going in, and then with any luck, the weather will clear out, and we got 2 options for races. So my heart is set on Lake Cumberland in Kentucky. I want to go out there. They have a really nice back of the track race that always has a really good car count, and we've always struggled there. Shouldn't struggle with this one as much. Hopefully we can do good there with the back of the track. And then the tree side is pretty peppy. It's almost as fast as Yellow Belly was last weekend. So it's concrete, but it's old concrete. There's not really rubber down. It gets a little dirty, especially since we don't usually run on it, but like once every like 3 to 4 months. So this will be the first time we've been on it, I think, since October. And then the next race will be in October. So, you know, you got fields all around it. You got crop harvesting. I think there's wheat out there. So you got all that dust and dirt associated with that. And then wintertime, you got, you know, winter crap, and then you have all your spring crap that gets on the surface. So, you know, it's in a green, lush part of the world. So it's tricky early, but then it significantly speeds up. I think this motor's got what it takes to do it. I really do. I think this Texas Speed Sleeve 427 will do it. And then the heads, ever since we had Ryan Mueller go through the heads, have been rock solid. So we did a quick leak down test on the stand, and this thing is sealed tight. So she's ready to rock and roll. We also changed from the copper coat on the head gaskets to the Hylomar in order to help keep the water where it needs to go. And kudos to the detonation suppression of the CAS, because I'm going to tell you a secret. I had this head gasket on this side flipped over, and there's not water holes cut for the big water flow from the to get the water out of the head into the water manifold to the radiator. So this side was a little bottlenecked for water flow. Although we didn't distort the gasket at all, we didn't distort the block, or we didn't get any cracks, we didn't get any like issues, because luckily we don't run the thing for very long. We just run it long enough to get the water up to temp some, and then we kill it, and then we push it around, and then we do our pass, and then we shut it right back off. That's it. Luckily we didn't hurt anything, and that is where I think a lot of our issues with little pressurization of the cooling system was coming out of. And when it did that, we're also pushing through a 4A in line from the front of the car to the rear of the car to the catch can. We're going to upsize that too. So we're going to take that from a 4A in line to an 8A in line to the back. That way there's not so much head pressure on that line when it's trying to vent the cooling system. Because I was feeling the cooling system all the way up when it was kind of cold, and as we all know, liquids expand when they're warm. So, you know, things were happening. Physics was happening. So we're going to try to address all those things. Okay. Well, that's kind of where we're at with the LS. If I don't even want to say the word. the liquid from the sky at Lake Cumberland is kind of iffy right now. You know, we're looking at the Long Ranger right this moment. We're about 10 days away, and we got like a 40% chance of like mist, and can't race in the mist. It sucked to go all that way to race in the mist. There is a local race. The Sho-Me Racing guys are putting on a no prep at Flying H out here in Odessa. It's like 45 minutes from here. We have never taken this car down the track at Odessa yet, and I know they really want me there, but I committed to the Cumberland race first, and there's multiple chances to race at Cumberland, and you know, I kind of like the scenic views and getting away out there. So we're gonna let weather kind of dictate what happens that weekend. So I think that's it for right now. We're not going to do the third bottle with the LS. I think we can conserve air to run as fast as we need to run with the system we have on the car. Third bottle will mostly be for the big block when we try to go for the 28-inch slick tire record type numbers. So that's what that's going to be for. Okay, let's go check out the compressor. Let's go talk about it for a minute. All right, so no secret by now if you've been watching, we've had some compressor problems. Well, you know, we bought this nice compressor in Florida. So why are we having problems? Well, for one, I'm not a small engine mechanic. Let's just start there. So we used, previously there was a diesel on here. That diesel's nasty. Oh my gosh. You can't fill the thing up with fluid or with fuel without making a mess, and having a you know, 1 gallon tank up here at the top sucks, you know. And no matter how pretty you try to be filling it up or anything like that, there's things dropping off this tree. Some of them are crawly, some of them are not, some kind of itchy. But no matter how nice you try to be with putting fuel in it, you're making a mess. So the nice thing was, if we got the thing full, we could make 4 rounds of racing and not refill the generator or refill the diesel motor. Well, anyways, I tried to do preventative maintenance, and I took off the belts that were on it when I bought the compressor, and I put these new O'Reilly's Gates ones on here. And this thing was so flimsy, it stretched so fast that it ended up costing me a bunch of headache this weekend. So what had happened was, we made our first round pass. We come back from second round, we fill the car up. All right, neat. I don't want to listen to this thing run. So I fire it up right before we start pushing up for second round. Things happen to Yellow Belly. We're in the lanes for a couple hours. Whatever, it is what it is. It's Yellow Belly, we expect it. You know, stuff happens. Well, this sucker's running with the assumption it's going to shut off, and ended up throwing or slacking those belts. And like this one's on right now. Yeah, it's jumped over a pulley right now, because when I put it on, I didn't get it on quite straight, but I just ran it temporarily just a few minutes ago. Well, anyways, I threw the belts off, ran the diesel for quite a while, and then got, I'm guessing it's called a stator or regulator or whatever's on the side of the diesel motor that pretty much takes all the 12 volt in, makes more 12 volt to recharge the battery, and it sends 12 volt out to different parts of the system here. Well, anyways, that thing died. So we had no power to the start switch. The start switch was mounted right here. We had no power to that. Had to jump start basically at the starter to get the diesel going. Got that to go. Got just enough air in the car off of what was in the system already in the trailer to go run Baroni for third round. And then we had a little bit of air left over to kind of get the car charged up for the finals. Ended up getting the compressor working just well enough to get the car full. So we ended up pretty much shutting off our main bottles in the trailer. And then when we filled through this line to the trailer side, we were able to use the regulator on the trailer side to fill the car up to 3,500 pounds, and we're able to run the final at full power. So no excuses on why I lost the finals and with the Stewed, other than I ran out of having enough downforce. So something about that body style that starts with a P was made to really help assist with downforce. So they did a badass job. So anyways, where are we now? So now we have this little gas motor on here, 13 horsepower. The diesel motor made 10. Normally this motor had trouble starting with this direct drive. There you go, that's about normal. Okay, so now it won't start because it is belted to the compressor and doesn't have the diesel torque to start turning everything over to start off that low RPM output. So I've got a clutch hub coming with V-belts, which I'll tell you, trying to find a 1-inch arbor clutch hub with a number A or letter A belt, which is a 1/2 inch wide belt, is pretty tough. So I found a company that makes one. Says it's not for air compressor use, so we may or may not have issues with that. We may or may not have a spare of those very soon. But we're gonna use that to kind of get this thing started, because I had to do this a very, very fun way, which was right here. We can actually slide this pump 2 inches that way to slack the belt, and then I was using the impact to pull the pump back on once the engine was up to RPM to get everything going. Anyways, it worked. Don't judge me. We got through the race. We had air for everything we needed to do. We made it work. So my plan going forward is this pump head's really reliable, actually. This filtration system is high capacity, high flow. We can put some service hours on it. We're almost due to have to replace the filter in this one. This one's mechanical, we don't have to service that one. This pump head is from 1981. This is a Bauer K50 or K14 pump head. This sucker is made for abuse and typically used in like firefighting equipment or military type breathing apparatus refilling equipment. So that sucker is made for some hours and some time. The pulley ratio I got picked out does not spin the pump at full capacity. It'll spin at about 70% capacity, which is about where we were with the diesel. So this will be just a little bit quicker, about 5% quicker. So we'll have very similar air output, which is more than enough that we need. So I think we can even have enough to do some double entry soon. So with this engine, we won't have as much electrical reliance on it. I pretty well given myself a pretty good dang crash course on how to make this system work pretty good. And the nice thing is, if we have a motor failure, we can always go to a Harbor Freight anytime the sun's up and get another one, because these things are pretty much everywhere. And if they don't have this one in stock, then we can always buy the race version or something silly. You know, we can get the job done, and that's what's important. So I do have faith that we're just about there on our compressor woes. So, because the car side's just rock solid. It just works so dang good. You know, we need this guy to be a little bit better, and we're almost there. And you know, like I said, I started with shooting myself in the foot with putting belts on it that I thought were better. You know, they weren't like the Power 2 high rated belts like this black one is. And we've got some other stuff coming that'll help. Like we're gonna do a corded belt or a banded belt. So basically it links these two together. So it's like a 2-rib serpentine belt with 2 big teeth, like 2 big old buck teeth. So I'm gonna get that coming too. And then we may end up making a spring tensioner for it, but we're gonna over-engineer the crap out of this stupid thing to make sure that, you know, it's just way more reliable, self-adjusting, you know, make sure we can get the job done. So this weekend, that's what I'm gonna kind of work on. And then I also wanna work on getting that dryer system and condensate drain moved into the trailer. And then I also wanna get an enclosure built for the pump system. So that way it's not in direct elements. It's not getting tree crap dropped on it. But we're gonna use air return vents, kind of like what's in the ceiling here, just much bigger. We're gonna use some like 2x2 foot ones of those to ventilate the side of it, and then we'll have like a folding door on the front is my plan. That way we can flip that up. It'll give everything a nice sunshade. It'll be able to move plenty of air around the system. And then I've also got a small replacement quiet muffler coming, and we're going to put a basically a header attachment on the generator, and then run that into a muffler and see if we can't make it a little bit quieter. I'm sorry, I say generator, air compressor. Into the compressor to make it even quieter. So this motor, also a perk of it, is it's like 40 pounds lighter than the diesel was. It's also much quieter already than it was, and I could actually have this kind of conversation with somebody within like 10 feet of the compressor. Versus the diesel, I had to like get on the other side of a wall, and then it was still hard to have this conversation. So those are all perks. You know, I want it to be quieter, I want it to be easy to replace in case we have an issue. And yes, we're gonna eventually get a whole different compressor for backup assemblies. I just haven't decided which one I want to get yet. You know, parts we want to do the Bauer Oceanus, which is like a 90-pound portable unit, and that's the one that Mark uses at the track on his car, Mark Griffin, and that's the only compressor he's really ever used. And that one, we were told, only has like 500 to 700 service hours on it before it needs like a pretty extensive rebuild. So my goal is to buy one that's already been rebuilt, that we can put, you know, 400 or 500 hours on, and if we use it as a backup, that should last a long time. So based on like quick calculations, I think we're only going to have to run a compressor for about 500 to 600 hours in a year. So just about right for when all the service intervals come up on everything, and we can replace everything. So besides like the air filter, you know, or the air purifier filter, that big old stack filter, that guy we got to change out about every 40 to 50 hours. So, but they're not bad. They're like 35, 40 bucks to buy. So we've got one of those, and so we'll probably change it out pretty quick, and then we'll buy some other ones to keep in the trailer so we can change them at regular intervals as needed. Oh, so I think that's about it for right this moment. So we're only midway through the week since Yellow Belly only been home for like 2 whole days, and we've already got the LS back in it, and it's pretty much ready to rock and roll soon. So yeah, if you guys got any other questions, leave a comment below. I've been trying to respond to a lot more comments as I get chances, and if there's enough of the same one, then I'll address them more in the following video. So thank you, have a great night.